Hi, everybody, and welcome to The Horror Within Me. My name is Eric, but I go by Foxy Batman. I grew up in a very chaotic household, and as a means of escape, I immersed myself into the world of horror. Recently, I decided to pursue my passion and start my own horror podcast to talk about all things in the horror universe. So, with that being said, let's go get spooky. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to The Horror Within Me. I'm your host, Eric, and I am so thrilled to finally be back here recording episode 8. It's been a few months since we last got together. I believe the last episode was released in March, which was episode 7, The Chosen One, which was focused on one of my all-time favorite television shows, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In the last episode, I mentioned that I'd be taking a small break. Reason mostly being I was in my final semester of school for my bachelor's degree, and I really needed to have all of my focus put into that. It was very important for me to finish strong in my final 2 months, so I needed to really push all of my other things going on in my life on the back burner just to ensure that went smoothly. And so much has changed since I last, spoke to you, everyone. I graduated May 1st with my bachelor's in business administration. I got a minor in marketing. I have a new marketing director job, which is super exciting. I've been there for a few months now. So many great things. My streaming for Twitch is going well, which is under Foxy Batman, which is my other platform. And I've really been kind of exploring TikTok and promoting the Heart Within Me because I think that it's a really great platform for me to meet people and people like me and to share my point of view and my thoughts. And that's just kind of what I'm doing. I am shy, especially with the camera. I'm not used to it, but I am pushing myself to really dive in and explore what it is that I love about horror. I talked about this a little bit here and there, but honestly, my passion really began at a very young age with horror, and I've just always been into it. But at some point in my life, as I got older, my mom passing right before I turned 18, and kind of going on to my own, I began a different kind of lifestyle. I just had come out of the closet, and this is a good story, Pride Month. But no, I had just come out of the closet, and I was trying to find out who I was, and I thought, partying was the way to go. And I partied for years and tried to fit in different ways and figure out who I am. And now, 35 going on 36, I just realized that I miss who I was. I'm sober. I don't drink anymore. I barely don't do any mind-altering drugs or anything like that. So I've been sober for almost 3 years. And in this time, I've really been rediscovering who I am, what I like, and learning that not everyone continues on your journey with you. So with that being said, I'm very interested in just finding that staying with the people that are with me and learning and growing and meeting new people and really just connecting with myself. This is really the point, is to connect with myself and hopefully along the way meet some really great people. But the most obvious reason is to connect with myself. When I was younger, I played a lot of horror games. I watched a lot of horror movies and collected memorabilia. I remember my room growing up as a teenager. I had like the Chucky and Tiffany dolls. I had Living Dead dolls, Michael Myers masks. Like, that was my thing. And then I kind of became ashamed and embarrassed as I was older because I didn't have the people around me in my mind that understood me. So I kind of pushed it away. And I missed that part of me. It's thrilling and it's exciting, and I just light up to talk about it and to see it. And I used to feel like a freak, but you know what? Maybe I am. That's fine. So I really wanted to jump back in, and I really want to thank the people that have been listening to my podcast. The last 7 episodes, there's some people in the United States, there's people in Belgium, the UK, India. I think that's amazing that we can just produce these episodes and really go out and connect with people. So thank you so much to whoever is listening. I'm very thankful for you to be a part of this with me. So episode 8, I promoted a little bit about it on TikTok and Facebook, at the Horror Within Me. And I decided to start back up with a very unique movie called The Sadness. I came across this movie on a Facebook page. I'm a part of a Facebook group that I'm in for horror movies. And all of these people were posting about this movie, The Sadness. And so I became intrigued from their comments saying, one of the goriest films they've ever seen, not your average zombie movie, typical comments. But I was very interested, so I decided to kind of explore a little further in that, and I've learned that it was on Shudder, which I've obviously heard of in the past, but again, I didn't have it because I just didn't really have the time to really invest in my passion, or say I didn't have the time to invest, but no more excuses or whatever you want to say. So I pulled up The Sadness on IMDb. It is a subtitled movie, and I believe it is in China, so I'm not going to probably be able to pronounce everything, but I'm going to do my best and read the synopsis and everything. So it was created in 2021. And what it says here is a young couple trying to reunite amid a city ravaged by a plague that turns its victims into deranged, bloodthirsty sadists. And it's got a 6.5 out of 10 out of 6.3 thousand people. Let's scroll down some more. There's 2 videos, 22 photos. It's got some cast members. Director is Rob Jabaz. I hope I said that. He's also the writer. Let's see what else we can see. Storyline here. Let's read the storyline. Okay. After a year of combating a pandemic with relatively benign symptoms, a frustrated nation finally lets its guard down. This is when the virus spontaneously mutates, giving rise to a mind-altering plague. The streets erupt into violence and depravity, as those infected are driven to enact the most cruel and ghastly things they can think of. Murder, torture, rape, and mutilation are only the beginning. A young couple is pushed to the limits of sanity as they try to reunite amid the chaos. The age of civility and order is no more. There is only the sadness. Okay, so I watched this, and just an FYI, this is a new format, before we get into this, of 30 minutes, I believe. The previous, episodes were about an hour long, and I felt that an hour was too long to try to grasp at straws and dig out content, and I think 30 minutes is plenty of time to just really hit the nail on the head on what we're discussing, connecting with, and not lose sight of that. And with that also being said, my podcast is more of a natural podcast. It's almost as though listening live. It's very little editing. I like it to be like a story of me just sitting here and talking with you, not so much of it being heavily edited and scripted. It's kind of on a whim, which is what I love about it. This is why I want to do it. If I lose so much time into trying to make it perfect, it doesn't feel natural to me. And I want it to be as natural as possible. So, let's dive into the movie. So I watched it one time, and I watched it a few days ago, and I did it while my husband wasn't home because he'll watch some horror movies with me, but not all of them. And this was one, I wasn't sure if he would watch at all. One, because of the amount of gore and torture that I heard about. But two, not that he wouldn't watch a subtitled movie, but him not being into horror in general, to have to also follow along and read about it, I don't know if he would want to read the gruesome things that are being said or done. So I got home from work early, and I said to him, I said, I'm going to watch the movie now. So it'll be done before you get home. Not, we do have multiple TVs in the house, but we like to spend time together after work sometimes, and we do a lot of things together. We have shows we watch, things like that. So I really wanted to get it done while he wasn't home. Anyway, I get myself together. I get on my couch. I pull up Shudder. I get my 2 dogs, my cat, and my snacks, which, by the way, my go-to is ginger ale and kettle-cooked jalapeno chips. Get with it. It is amazing. Now, anyway, so I'm getting ready to turn the movie on, and I get it going, and right off the bat, going in, it's talking, they're talking, like it says in the description, about a pandemic, and it hit me, like, okay, this is going to be a take on COVID-19. This is just another way of discussing COVID-19. I just see it already. They speak about the pandemic not being taken seriously because it was also an election year, and I'm getting deja vu. I'm getting Trump vibes and Biden vibes and all the things on social media that we were experiencing in real life over here, in America. To see it from a standpoint and a viewpoint in China and their way of just, saying it was very interesting because I'm used to American movies. This is also one of my first foreign films in general. I haven't really dived into these universes or these different countries and their different take on any genre, let alone horror. So I'm immediately interested. I wasn't sure if I would be, but I was. So you meet the couple. I don't remember their names. I'm terrible with names, so I'm sorry. Let's see. Kat was the main girl. I remember that. Her name was Kat, and Jim. There you go. I have Jim and Kat. So Jim and Kat are a couple. They wake up. They're in bed, and they're getting ready to go to work, like a normal day. And I thought that was interesting, and I'm trying to, not just watch it and enjoy the movie, but kind of study it because I want to, be able to discuss it with all of you. And I'm thinking, just enjoy it, and then whatever your takeaway from it is what my takeaway is going to be. So anyway, they're getting ready, and she went to take a vacation, and I'm reading the words. And what I like about reading the subtitles that I didn't realize I was going to like as much was now it's like reading a book. And I used to not read books, but I do now. And reading a book, I can imagine and start to put myself in this world. So reading along with it was easier than I anticipated it to be. And so there was a thing she said that she was upset she wanted to get a tan. And I'm thinking oh, okay. She, I pictured them on the vacation they were supposed to go to, but he was saying that he might have to work now because I think he's a photographer and he doesn't get a lot of jobs and whatever. So he goes outside, and it's it's not weird, but it's like a different kind of little balcony space with like a sliding glass door. And on the other side, there's like bars or something, not bars, but like a separator in a way from the neighbor's house. And the neighbor man comes out, and they're talking, and I'm trying to pay, it's foreshadowing. I'm like, where's the foreshadowing? Because this is going to be someone. Where's the guy that's in the trailer? But there's, no foreshadowing I could really see. He offers him, I think it was spicy basil, because he came out to water his plants, the neighbor did. And then the girl comes out, and everyone's just very pleasant and nice. And so the guy tells her he's going to drive her to work. Jim says he's going to drive Kat to work. And I think they're on a moped kind of scooter, motorcycle thing. And as they're driving, they drive past this crime scene where there's somebody looking kind of disheveled and irate. And there's a body, covered with a sheet, and the police are there. And he slows down as they're driving by, and they just do this look, and it's very eerie and interesting, and you can tell that this is the beginning of what's to come. and nobody knows it yet because it's just one police car and one person that you can tell. So he takes her to work, and he apologizes for slowing down and apologizing that she had to see that. And I thought that was pretty interesting, that he apologized to slow down and that she shouldn't have been exposed to such violence and such gruesome images on their way. I thought that was an interesting take. You don't hear much of that in American movies where I'm so sorry. Or maybe you do. I don't pay attention, but not that I notice. And then he gets her to work, and then he goes back, and then he goes to get his coffee at a coffee shop. It must be a regular because he knows the guy behind the counter, and the guy's like, oh, do you want your regular with, whatever that he usually gets? And he's like, no, just a coffee today. And the guy behind the counter says, no problem. I have to finish the order ahead of me. And while he's waiting, a woman walks in like a white gown kind of thing, like not a fancy gown, but like a nightgown in a way. And like, I think she's barefoot, old lady, white hair. And she walks up. Oh, okay. So she walks up, and these two guys are sitting at a table behind her. And they're looking at her because she's just obviously out of place. She doesn't look like everyone else. She doesn't look all together. And I think they're pointing. And so the guy gets up and calls her granny. I don't know if it's because she's old or if it's his grandmother. It's never clarified, and I would actually like to know that. So I might have to look that back up. But yeah, he called her granny, and she turns around and it's fucking creepy. And at this point in the podcast, I just want to give a fair warning that it is very explicit, that what I'm going to be discussing, it might be triggering, and I'm going to describe things and say things that are extremely violent. So if you don't do well with that, this might not be the episode for you. All right. Now, so she turns around and she's just very creepy. She's got like black eyes and this smile, and I think she spits in his face, and it's just this weird spit that she spits in his face. She turns back around, faces the guy in the counter, grabs a grease like trap, like a grease thing with like where you would deep fry like fries and chicken or whatever, pours it over the guy behind the counter's head, and then he's like screaming as his face is melting, and she's like digging out his flesh, and the other guy is screaming. Our guy Jim, main character Jim, is just screaming at the top of his lungs, and then she says something along the lines of being handsome to him or something, and he books it. He's out, and now we know this is it. So he leaves. I'm not going to walk through frame by frame, scene by scene. I'm just going to, I don't have that much memory either. But I'm going to go over the parts that really stuck to me. So yeah, so he leaves, he ends up back at his apartment, and he's trying to call Kat. He's trying to text her, find out what's going on, something weird's happening. And while he's texting, you can see the blur behind him that the neighbor is coming into the house. And you already know, like, come on. We already know that the neighbor is infected because he's sneaking in. So as he's trying to say this, he notices, I think out of the mirror, or not a mirror, but like a painting reflection, that there's someone behind him. So he turns around really quickly, and the neighbor comes and tries to stab him with like the garden shears that he was using. And it's got this smile on his face and these black eyes. And that's the thing that kind of creeps me out the most about this, is that the people that are infected are smiling and laughing with black eyes, but they're also crying. Like they are crying, and there's tears, and their faces are wet, which is why it's called the sadness. I think they mention it. But so there's a fight ensues, and they're back and forth at each other, and our guy Jim has got his pointer finger and middle finger like holding open the shears, with like the inside of the shear on one hand and like the guy's wrist on the other. And so it's just this part gets me. The neighbor notices that his hand is in the chopping of the spheres, or the whatever, and cuts his two fingers off. Guy starts screaming. He ends up hitting him with like a tea kettle or something. He bashes his head down or whatever, and the guy looks at him, maybe before or after the bashing, I honestly don't remember. But anyway, looks at him and puts his two fingers up that he still has and says something along the lines of, don't worry, I'll make sure I finger her for you or something. And I was like, oh, this is very graphic. And that's pretty much how it remains throughout the rest of the movie. We jump into where Kat is, and somehow she's on a subway, and on the subway somebody becomes infected and attacks people. They start stabbing people on the train, and as people are being stabbed and being infected, they're turning too. So it becomes like a mayhem of people like getting raped. The one guy that was sitting next to her before this all started, he's the main villain in my eyes. He's sitting there and he's trying to talk to her, and she's like, listen, basically, I don't want anything to do with you, and just leave me alone, or I'm gonna charge you with sexual harassment. And now that pissed him off. So now, he eventually becomes infected during the mayhem, and there's a girl sitting next to her, bigger girl, shy. He stabs her in the left eye with an umbrella. She's screaming. The girl Kat's helping her. I believe the girl's name is Molly. Yeah, Molly's the other girl whose eye gets poked out. And then, they attack, and then they start running away. The man's chasing them, and he chases them for a long time. Now, at this point, my jaw drops, because I'm just thinking, like, what the hell? I heard it was gruesome. I heard it was bad. Not in a bad way, but I had to be mentally prepared to watch it and read it. But I wasn't as prepared to be reading what they say. So my take wasn't, I didn't look a lot into it. I kind of wanted to be on surprise. So the people that are infected are still themselves, like I said in the description, but it changes your brain to where you're extremely violent, and the rape and the torture and the mutilation, they're literally raping people on the street. They're ripping things apart. And, oh, my God. Reading things that they say, there's a scene. So later in the movie, there's a scene with Molly in the hospital. And the nurse said, don't ask me why. They left her in the hallway as the infected get in or whatever. And this guy that's been chasing them the whole time finds her, and he looks at her, and they keep calling her like a fat cunt or fat whatever. And he says to her, like, I'm gonna, like, and he basically rapes her eye socket. And it was just her screaming and him raping her eye socket. And you don't really see it, but you hear it, and it's just very disturbing. Like, this is just sick. Another scene I'm going to jump to that really stuck out, that was very graphic and gruesome to me. Not gruesome, but like the reading of what they say. There was a scene of this guy being tortured on a basketball court by 4 of these infected people, and our main guy Jim comes and saves him and like fights the 4 off, and the one that he's helping untie turns to him and must have become infected during the fight and says, why'd you stop them? I was just about to shoot my load. And I was like, whoa, okay, like, who wrote this? And is this translation correct? Because it's just really graphic. And fast forward again, sorry for jumping around. If you guys have seen the movie or haven't, it'll all make sense to you. So we jump back, and the main guy that was on the train that's looking for a cat is on her heels, and he says, thanks for you. Did you think your fat friend was going to be okay? Her eye juice is still drying on my dick. Literal word for word is what was said here. And I was like, oh God. So anyway, she has this other guy's phone. She's texting Jim, and he starts to have visions of this mannequin head in the puddle being one of the infected people, and then we quickly realize that he's also infected. And she tells him where she is at the hospital, and she meets a scientist who saves her and tries to, and injects her with the virus and believes that she's immune to it. And, at this point she killed a guy on the train. She bashed his head in with a fire extinguisher, which was fucking violent, but also gruesome. And then when she gets in, they see the other people that found him, start ripping apart his penis and ripping his guts and groin and everything out. It was really graphic. So anyway, the scientist starts explaining to her, saying maybe they can still feel remorse, but they can't do anything about it, which is why they're crying. And that was my little explanation, their little explanation, I believe, to the name of the sadness. And they know that it's wrong, but they have no control. And so it's like being possessed by a demon, but still being fully aware of what you're doing and knowing what you shouldn't be doing, which is really terrible. So anyway, the boyfriend gets to the hospital as they're trying to get to the roof because this helicopter's coming to allegedly save them, and scientist ends up getting killed. And the boyfriend's there, and he's definitely infected. And she's upset, and she ends up getting the keys and locking the door to the stairs. And he's talking to her, and they had a moment where he says that he just loves her, and blah blah blah. And he starts telling her all the fucking gruesome things he wants to do to her. And she cries, and she goes up to the roof, and you hear the helicopter, and then you hear a bunch of gunshots. And I take it that they shot her to death. They weren't really coming to rescue anybody. They're coming to do a Resident Evil umbrella wipe the fucking city out, and nobody's allowed to leave. Regardless if you are showing signs of infection or not, we're going to take you out. And that was the end of the movie. So I just sat there for a moment. I'm like, wow, I really enjoyed it. It was extremely gory, which I'm not used to. I don't watch a lot of graphic, gory movies, but I was so happy to have jumped back into this, and I'm so excited. I have other movies on Shudder I plan to watch, and maybe some content for the podcast. I strongly suggest any gory horror fans that are out there get Shudder, watch The Sadness, go check out the trailer. I promise you, even though I may have spoiled the movie for you, it is still something you need to experience for yourself that my words don't even do justice for it. So definitely check it out. And I want to know what you think. Again, you can find me on Facebook at The Horror Within Me on Facebook. There's my website at thehorrorwithinme.com. Like I said, I'm super excited to be back, and I really look forward to suggestions on different, podcast episodes that we can discuss, maybe some potential guest stars, content other than movies, some TV shows, maybe a book, a video game, and just, diving back into this whole world of horror. We've covered folk horrors and, subgenres of like thrillers. How's that fall into the category, So the next movie I think I'm going to watch is called The Cellar. Not entirely sure. That's also on Shudder, something I want to look into. Book that I'm probably going to discuss a little bit in another episode I finished recently is The Final Girl Support Group, which is super fun in itself because it's kind of like all the different like final girls from like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and things like that, but like in their own way. They're like inspired characters from these people, and it's super cool. That was a good book. If that's a suggestion, if you're looking to read a little summer reading, a little slasher, you should definitely check that out. And in terms of horror video games, Dead by Daylight, check that out. Definitely, The Quarry comes out on next Friday, I believe. You should definitely pick up a copy. It was from the makers of Until Dawn. I believe David Arquette stars in it. Our guy from Scream, R.I.P. Dewey. So, yeah, so many things coming up in the summer. I will try to keep this back on a weekly basis, not bi-weekly, 30-minute episodes. And this was fun. I'm excited, and I hope to see your comments and suggestions moving forward. All right, that's all the time we have for this week's episode. Please go and rate and review this episode with what you liked, what you didn't like about it, and help a fellow horror fan out. Also, for more Horror Within Me content, head on over to my website, thehorrorwithinme.com. There you'll find my blog and my social media channels that will keep you updated on all the spooky things I'm doing or planning on doing. And until next time, stay spooky.